Hi there Waltoneers, I'm Jack and this is DSNY Newscast, and now that the dust has settled following on from D23 last month, looking back on it now, we did get an awful lot of news and announcements for big projects coming to the Disney parks in the next 5 years. And in actual fact, there was so much news that I couldn't dive into it all in great depth. So that's what I'll be doing on this channel over the coming weeks and months ahead. So subscribe down below for all of that. But the first project which I want to talk about is one that was kind of overlooked or kind of lost amongst the rest of the new announcements, as we did previously know about it. But it is very important, and that is the Tropical Americas land coming to Animal Kingdom. And the reason why this is such a big deal isn't just because it's two very popular IP which are going to be featured within this land, with Encanto getting its very first ever ride-through attraction at any of the Disney parks, and then you've got Indiana Jones getting a brand new version of that much beloved attraction which we see over at Disneyland, but this time it's going to be a completely new, unique attraction to Animal Kingdom. So that's very exciting for the Indiana Jones fans as well. But the other reason why this is a big deal is because Tropical Americas will be the first of this kind of super cycle of Disney park projects to open, as it has been officially announced that they will open it in 2027. So that roughly gives them around 2 to 2.5 years to do the construction and get everything ready for 2027. And then a lot's going to be riding on it, as you know, it's to set the expectation level for the rest of the Disney park projects that are also going to be under construction and opening within that 5-year time frame as well. So it's a very important project to talk about, but they even mentioned that construction is set to begin in fall of 2024. And so what I'm expecting is construction walls are probably going to go up around end of September in Dinoland USA, and then in October we should see actual construction activity probably begin around then to align it with Disney's new fiscal year, as they do like to do that and keep it all contained within the new fiscal year for the beginning of construction. But the other thing to mention here is they're going to take a two-phase approach to construction activity. So we'll see the Dino-Rama section of Dinoland close first and begin construction, and then Dinosaur is going to close at a later date, sometime in 2025, give everyone time to give it one last ride and say goodbye to Dinosaur, or if you're like me, you know, call it Countdown to Extinction sometimes as well, and give it one last goodbye to that attraction before it then begins its transformation into Indiana Jones. And when Disney want to move fast on these kind of things, they can, and they probably only need around 18 months to do that transformation into Indiana Jones. But the other thing to note here is just because they're closing them in a staggered approach doesn't mean they're going to be opening in phases. It's all going to open in one go in 2027. And so before we then begin tracking all of the construction, right now I want to talk about what we know so far about Tropical Americas. And the place where I want to begin is the layout of where everything's going to be within Tropical Americas. As in actual fact, at D23, the day after the announcement, when everyone was discussing all the big news coming out of it, Disney also showcased a brand new model for Tropical Americas at the Imagineering Pavilion at D23. And this model is very well put together and really does give a fantastic look at what we can come to expect from the theming within Tropical Americas. And because it's got two different IP within this land, it's that rarest of things for Disney parks nowadays. It's a multi-IP land, so it's not going to be a single IP land like we've come to expect from a lot of modern Disney park lands that we've seen built recently, but instead they need a storyline or a original storytelling perspective to try and tie these two different IP together within the same land and have a kind of regional aspect to it. And so from a storytelling standpoint, it's going to be known as a village called Pueblo Esperanza. Now, I probably butchered the pronunciation there, let me know down in the comments, but it does translate to Village of Hope, and that is very much going to be like Harambe Market with the layered storytelling within the area. So it's going to have this kind of original backstory within the land as well, and the geographical and environmental landscaping and theming of the land is going to take inspiration from the northern part of South America up through Central America for this Tropical Americas. That's what they're defining it as. So that's what we can see within the model. It's very well put together and looks great, but it's sometimes hard to just look at a model and understand exactly where everything currently will be. And so I've taken the model and I've converted it into an aerial view perspective so we can look at it top down and see exactly where everything will go. And you can see this transition here right now into this map which I've made showing where everything will roughly be located, and we can then understand the layout of the land. But there's also another way of doing it, and it's to actually walk through Dino Land and then do a transformation of where the certain piece of concept art will be. So let's begin with the entrance into Dino Land USA, and you can see here that this is transforming into the archway. This is where the archway into the Tropical Americas land will be, or Pueblo Esperanza. And then as you walk a bit further up and you stop where to the side of Triceratops Spin and turn around and look back towards the boneyard, that is going to be where the carousel is going to be located, this new carousel. And then if you keep moving into Dinorama section of Dino Land, where Primeval Whirl used to be, kind of sitting there, that's where the casita is going to be located. And then the show building for that attraction is going to go further into the backstage area. And then also Restaurantosaurus is going to be transformed into a Colombian style market, they've referred to it as, within the concept art, which you can see here as well. So Restaurantosaurus is going to get a big re-theme as well. And then Dinosaur is going to obviously transform into Indiana Jones, and you can see the temple there for Indiana Jones. It's important to note that they said in the article that this is an 11-acre project, but once you take into account how far back the Encanto attraction is going to go within the land, it's going to increase it to around 12.5 acres, so around a 1.5 acre increase to the overall area. And so technically it is physically an expansion upon what was currently there. But the Encanto attraction is going to move fairly far into the backstage area. And we've even seen recently permits filed for work to be done on a few buildings backstage at Dino Land USA, and it's these 3 buildings here which have been marked as having work done. And one of them is clearly going to be demolished, and the other 2 might be demolished or might be moved further back if they can do so. But yeah, these 3 buildings are definitely going to be impacted by the size of the Encanto show building for this attraction. And just mapping it out, taking the model and then mapping out roughly onto the overview map, it looks like it's going to be roughly around 60,000 square feet for this show building. That's just a rough guess of the size of this show building, which if you compare it to other attractions, Haunted Mansion's show building is around 50,000 square feet and Ratatouille's is around 55,000 square feet. But obviously a lot of the queue space there isn't included in that 55,000 square feet for Ratatouille. But it's still interesting to see the size of the show building. So I would say it's going to be roughly around 60,000 square feet, give or take 5,000 square feet either side of that number. Which means also that we can probably expect that the Encanto attraction is going to be anywhere between 5 to 8 minutes long in the duration, depending on the ride system as well. Then sticking with the map, the central water feature, the fountain, as part of the village, is going to be roughly located where the crocodile exhibit is. Marley, the American crocodile. And so that crocodile will have to be relocated, as that's roughly where the location of that central point is for the fountain as part of the land. And then other things to note here, pretty much all of the Dinorama section is going to be Encanto, or be the Encanto Gardens, building up to the attraction itself. So we will be seeing Triceratops Spin go as well, and that will have to either be scrapped or relocated. Now personally, I would like to see Triceratops Spin get relocated to a different park. I think it would make a lot of sense if they took Triceratops Spin and moved it over to Disney's Hollywood Studios. It's a perfectly working spinner attraction that if they took and moved over to Hollywood Studios doesn't have a spinner attraction like that, and it probably does need one. Every park kind of needs one of those, just for the little kids to ride. And they could put it in Toy Story Land. And the location where I would put it is to the side of the Roundup Rodeo barbecue restaurant and to the side of Slinky Dog, and have it there. So therefore, when you walk into Toy Story Land, you could see a bit of activity with the roller coaster and then also Triceratops spin. And obviously it goes without saying, but you could easily retheme it to Trixie from the Toy Story franchise. So I think it just makes too much sense to not relocate it. I really hope they don't just scrap the ride system. I hope they find a new home for it, because it adds additional attraction capacity to another park. And then coming back to Encanto, we have to talk about what to expect from the ride. And they released this piece of concept art for the interior of the attraction, and the ride narrative is set around the day that Antonio gets his gift, which is the ability to talk to animals. So that's your link there to Animal Kingdom and how they're going to make it work. Now, in terms of the artwork, it does seem like it's being intentionally vague over the ride system. It does look like it's been purposely cropped at a weird aspect ratio to try and hide the exact ride system and ride vehicles that they're using here. But the story description is that we'll be traveling throughout the casita on pieces of furniture magically moving throughout the casita, you know, in the way that they do with the floors. So that's what the ride vehicles will be themed to. But just from the perspective of the concept art, it kind of sits lower than the ride scenes, which is kind of common when it comes to boat rides. So just looking at the artwork very quickly, it looks like a boat ride. And the other thing is the building within the model clearly shows a 3-tier design to the show building, which is also typically associated with water rides and boat rides like we see with Pirates of the Caribbean and stuff like that. But here's where rumours come into this, as early conceptualization for this attraction apparently had it rumoured to be a trackless ride system. At least that's how it was initially conceptualized. And then throughout its developmental lifespan, it spent time both as a boat ride and also an Omnimover ride system. Now, looking at the piece of concept art doesn't necessarily scream Omnimover ride system, but I want to get to that in a minute. Boat ride, it was also considered as well, which I also think is quite a strange thing to do for the Encanto attraction, when trackless makes so much sense for us to be moving throughout the casita on this kind of magical floor that moves you around. I think just trackless makes way too much sense of that, but maybe they didn't like the reliability concerns that are typically associated with trackless ride systems as of late. So they're going for a more reliable ride system. Now, rumours seem to indicate that the Omnimover ride system seems like the one that they might be going with for this attraction, but I don't think it's going to be an Omnimover ride system in the same way that we see, you know, Haunted Mansion, where it's a chain of Omnimover ride systems all linked together that all move at a very set pace throughout the attraction, as then you kind of lose that kind of spontaneity within the narrative of us moving magically from room to room. Also, when you typically see those kind of chain link systems in concept art, like we saw with Spaceship Earth, they show it beginning on one side and ending out the other side of the concept art, showing you it's a chain of ride vehicles like that. Whereas this clearly shows just like 4 ride vehicles, and it's 2 guests per row, and it's around 8 people in supposedly the train of this ride system. And so the reason why Omnimover's probably being mentioned here is it's playing on the omnidirectional aspect of an Omnimover ride system, but not all Omnimover ride systems have to be chain linked together. And the reason for this is that Journey into Imagination is technically an Omnimover ride system, but it stops in individual scenes along the way, and it's on a track. And so it's possible that we could be looking at that kind of system here for this attraction, which would offer a lot more reliability for the actual ride system itself. But obviously at the time, this is just a lot of logical reasoning behind the various ride systems, and they haven't announced any such ride system for this attraction at this time. The question remains, how are they going to make it work with the floors within the casita to try and hide the track within the floors, because otherwise that would kind of ruin the illusion of traveling magically throughout the casita. So yeah, I still think trackless would work more convincingly for that effect, but we'll see. Also, expected capacity for this attraction is going to be substantially better than what it was replacing. So it's going to be a capacity expansion as well, as Primeval Whirl, the Wild Mouse roller coaster, could only roughly, handle around 900 guests per hour, and that's even when it's operating at max capacity, as oftentimes they would close down one side of a track, so it wasn't offering much much in terms of capacity to Dino Land or Animal Kingdom as a whole, whereas this new Encanto attraction is being touted as a major e-ticket family dark ride, and I know that Disney do try to aim at around 1,800 guests per hour to 2,000 guests per hour for a major e-ticket dark ride. So it should be a substantial increase in capacity for this attraction, really help Animal Kingdom throughout the day handle that extra capacity as well. Then moving on from Encanto to the other major attraction in Milan, which is going to be the new Indiana Jones attraction. That's going to be the re-theme of Dinosaur. As I previously said, this is going to be a unique storyline for Animal Kingdom. It's not just going to be a redo of the Indiana Jones attraction from Disneyland, which is much beloved, but it did open 30 years ago now. This is going to be a brand new version of the Indiana Jones attraction, and it seems to be themed around the legacy of Indiana Jones, not the most recent movie. Now, in terms of a storyline for this attraction, apparently Indiana Jones is going to be going within a Mayan temple, which is what the exterior looks like, by the way. And the exterior of this temple seems to actually be taking inspiration from a real temple that you can find in Honduras, which is known as the Rosalía Temple in Honduras. So it has similarities to that. And in terms of the attraction, this is going to be a Mayan temple. And the plot of the attraction is that Indy is venturing inside this temple to try and uncover something about a mythical creature. Now, from what I understand about this, and from what they said on stage at D23, they made a specific reference to dragons being featured within the entrance signage of Animal Kingdom. Now, with them making that very specific reference within the script, which is obviously written for this kind of presentation, I think that's hinting that maybe the mythological creature that Indy's going after is something to do with dragons. And if that's the case, I think that would be a fantastic storyline. And maybe it's not to do with an actual dragon itself, but trying to find the mythological, special power that a petrified dragon egg holds. And it could be a little bit like that moment that we see in the Indiana Jones movies where Indy swaps out the egg for something else. It could be something along those lines, but it's definitely going to feature mythological creatures, which means that it's not going to be Indiana Jones coming face to face with dinosaurs, which I'm glad that's not the case, because that most recent movie with the whole time travel aspect, they could have done that and sent Indiana Jones back to the time of the dinosaurs, which I think if you're going to re-theme this attraction, you've got to step away from it and do something completely original and new and not try and fit Indiana Jones into the existing narrative. So I think this is going to be a fantastic attraction. From what I've heard, Imagineering are very pleased with the story aspect of this attraction, and they're very excited to see this whole thing come to life. And it's really going to fit within Animal Kingdom with the whole mythological creature building off, you've got the Yeti in Expedition Everest, you've got Avatar with the creatures over there, and then you also have dragons as well. And all of this does actually make quite a lot of sense when you consider the prevalence that dragons have within Central and South American mythology. And also it's quite nice that if they do go in the dragon direction, it kind of is making reference to the unbuilt concept of Beastly Kingdom as well. And so that's a positive there. Now we've got to come to the new carousel. The actual concept art for this new carousel is beautiful, and the concept behind it of a local artisan who has loved Disney movies and wants to theme his carousel to Disney animal characters and has beautifully crafted these animal characters out of wood for the carousel, I think is fantastic in terms of the theming. You can see all kinds of different Disney characters there, and I think that'll be a great thing there. And obviously it's replacing the Boneyard. Now, this is a children's playground in Animal Kingdom. Now, I'm kind of sad to see this go because, especially with a little one myself, having areas within the parks for kids to run around and burn off some of that energy is definitely needed. I know it's kind of a relic of Disney parks of the 1990s and early 2000s that we saw these kind of playgrounds, but I do think they are needed within the parks as well, especially on long Disney park days with little ones, especially when you consider that they're going to have Indiana Jones within the same land, and so therefore they could have just done a relatively easy re-theme of the Boneyard Children's Playground into a Indiana Jones inspired archaeological dig site instead. So kind of sad to see the children's playground go, but I also understand that from a health and safety perspective it's kind of a nightmare, and also it doesn't offer much in terms of capacity, whereas a carousel can offer reliable, consistent capacity within that same location. But now, with that being said for today, it's over to you Walterners. I would like to know, what are your thoughts and opinions on Tropical America's coming to Animal Kingdom? I'm very excited to see the construction on this thing begin, because, you know, with Encanto, we're getting a brand new attraction there, which I can't wait to dive into all the details on that when we get more on that attraction. And then Indiana Jones, it's a much beloved attraction in Disneyland. I think it's going to be a fantastic attraction in Animal Kingdom, so very excited to see this thing come to life, and it's happening very soon as well. So with that being said for today, be sure to subscribe down below, hit the notification bell, and give this video a massive thumbs up if you've enjoyed it for today. And also, I'd like to say a massive thank you to the official Walterners over on Patreon for always supporting the channel, and also the Walterneer Gold members that you can see here on the screen right now, along with Walterneer Diamond members Kyle Mahan, Justin Tupper, and JC Russell. And so with all that being said for today, I've been Jack, you've been you, and I'll see you real soon.